What's happening, everybody? It's your boy Creative. Go ahead, say it with me. We are back at it again to do what? To create something great. Now, I'm not going to hold you. I'm super excited what I have planned for y'all today. We're going to be going over being able to create an MCP server. But before we get into creating an MCP server, right, I want us to understand what is context engineering in addition to what is context poisoning. Because one of the things that I've noticed when I was using Claude Code earlier today, right, is whenever I have something that I want Claude Code to explain to me, for an example, right? So let's say if I go to one of my Algo bots, for instance, and I'll go to the logs and I'll pull up the JSON and I'll say, all right, and I'll copy the first 5 lines of it, right? So I'll copy that and I'll go ahead and go over to Claude Code, and I'm using the 4.5 Opus model with medium effort, right? So I'll paste that in and then I'll ask it, hey, can you explain if there are any issues or errors that we should be made aware of in this log for VWhopper? And VWhopper is one of our algo trading bots that we have. And I made a couple of videos on VWhopper, right? VWhopper is a bot that trades EMA, VWAP, and then RSI. This is a momentum scalper bot. So back to the point, right? So you saw what I did. I took the context, right, and I dumped it in the context window, right? And then I asked a question on it. Now you can see, even though it was able to answer the questions, right, even though it was able to give us specific information, one of the things that I noticed here is that I'm context poisoning, fam. Because one great thing, and you saw how I did that, and this is a slash command, and anybody using Claude Code, I would recommend for us to be able to get very comfortable with using slash commands. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say this, but if you haven't already, go ahead and make sure that you smash that like and subscribe button. But let's keep going. So a slash command, right, is another way for us to communicate with Claude Code, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go to context. So it visualizes the current context usage, excuse me, as a color grid. I'm going to pull that up. So now what we see, the model that you're using, and this model, there are different Anthropic models that have more context window, right? But this particular one has 200K, and I'm already at 14%, or I've used 28,000. How did I use that, right? System prompts, system tools, custom tools. There's memory files. There's also skills. These messages is just what I've sent, right? And within that message, there is a little bit of context poisoning, and I'm going to explain what that is in a little bit here, right? And their free space is about 64%, right? So these are the MCP tools that I am using, and for those that are not familiar with, should I have that? 2 seconds. Here it is. What is an MCP, right? So MCP is an open source standard for connecting AI agents to external systems, right? When using an MCP, AI applications like Claude or ChatGPT can connect to data sources, whether those are local files, right, or databases. It can be tools, and those tools can be search engines or calculators, or it can also be workflows, right? Those workflows could be specialized prompts, enabling them to access key information and perform tasks. So think of an MCP like a USB-C port for an AI application. Just as a USB-C provides standardized ways to connect to electronic devices, an MCP provides a standardized way to connect AI applications to the external tool. So here's an example of it. So in the middle, we're going to have our MCP, and we're using an IDE, and that IDE is going to be Claude Code, right? So Claude Code is going to say, bet, all right, I need more information on a particular Python library. Then it's going to go to an MCP library, maybe for an example, context 7. And then context 7 is going to go to its database and then pull, okay, I want more information on FastMCP. And then once we get more information on FastMCP, it's going to send it back to the MCP server, and the MCP server is going to send it to Claude Code, right? So it's a way for us to be able to get more information concisely, right? So going back to our session here with Claude Code, we see here that we have a few MCP servers. I have context 7, also have JCode Munch, right? And we're also using MCP Volt. Now, the way that I use context 7, whenever there is a Python library or a new package or something that I don't particularly know the answer to, we're going to use context 7 MCP library in order to find out that information. Jcode Munch allows us to be able to index all of our Python files, right? Such that the IDE Claude code can be able to quickly reference it without having to read it. And then MCP Volt is going to be the MCP process that allows us to be able to index .md files, right? So here's going to be the custom agents that we have, the plugins. Don't worry, I'm going to make a video on plugins so you can understand that. A few of the plugins in the memory file, right? And then the user skills, and we also have the plugins as well. So as you can see here, right, there's a few items that I want us to be able to like proper understand. One of the first things I think we need to be able to gain context of is context engineering, right? So context engineering is the art and science of filling the context window with the right information at each step of the agent's trajectory, right? So a little bit more of a visual on how it works. So the context window, right, is what we're going to include, is going to be our prompt, for lack of better words, right? And that prompt is going to encompass the instructions. It also is going to encompass the knowledge, right? That knowledge could come from an MCP server. That knowledge could come from files that you actually have, right? A memory file, a .md file, or markdown file, or it could come from different tools, right? So this is the context that we're going to add in the context window. Now, one thing that I've noticed that I was doing was context poisoning, right? And that's what a context extraction, right? So context poisoning is when hallucination or other errors make it into the context and where it repeatedly is referenced. And context distraction is where the context grows so long that the model over focuses on the context and neglecting what is learned during the training. Right. And these are the articles that I'll definitely post so y'all can have access to it here. So one of the things that I want us to do now is to, number one, now we understand what context engineering, right? We understand what context poisoning is, right? Context poisoning is what I just did. I took the entire JSON and I just blanketly dumped it into Claude code, even though it was able to decipher and give us the proper information. I think a better way to do this is to be able to create an MCP server, right? And this MCP server is going to take all of the logs. So let me show you the plan that we already created with Claude Code, because there's a couple of prelim stuff that I had to do, but because I didn't want to waste y'all time. So let me show you the plan, right? So what we're doing today, and the way that I figured this out, is like, all right, bet. I was reviewing our trade reporter files, right? And our trade report files is the official source of truth when it comes to all of our Algo bots performance, because I want to check their profit and loss, or P&L. Right. What I was doing is that I was manually parsing each bot JSON with ad hoc Python terminal commands. Right. We're discovering mismatches between what the log says and what the trade reporter says. Right. This is extremely unsustainable when it comes to 27 plus bots that we're running. I have a couple of screeners that I'm running as well, if you want to take a peek at one, because there's one running right now. This is a screener. Let me just make it a bit more. This is a screener that I created. I'm going to make a video on this because this one is quite interesting. This screener is our fair gap FCR screener, right? So what it does is for the first candle range, right? So for the first 5 minutes, what it's looking at is the candle range for that first 5 minutes. And then if it breaks the resistance or supports level and a couple other things that we're looking for, then we're going to take the position. So right now it's opening up a few positions. We already took profit on a couple other positions. So this is just stocks, right? Because I've been dabbling around with that because we do options. Right. So let's go back to the source. I didn't mean to pivot a bit. So let's go back to the idea. Right. So what I need is a single source of truth that aggregates all of our bots logs into a queryable database. That sounds like an MCP server. Surfaces discrepancies, what the bot thinks it closed a position, but it didn't. Detect fleet-wide issues, 3 bots with database errors, right, with a same time stop equals a provider outage. I want to be able to find that out a little bit faster than just going through each bot logs, right? Because what we can do is, what I used to do is go through and bruv, each bot log, right? For example, let me pull this up, and then, all right, let me see if there's an error here. There's any X or is any warning. All right, let me stop. Okay, there's something I got to fix here. Oh, look, you just opened a position. Opening range is complete. All right, perfect. If there's any X, okay, nope, it's just you logging. So I have to do this manually, right? Or I'll have Claude Code do this. Or also, I created a file. This is like my little baby MCP, right? A log analyzer that manually that does this via Python. I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just create an MCP that does all this for us, right? So these are the current problems that we're facing, and this is the design, right? So we already have a log schema, and this log schema takes all of our logs for every single bot that we have and makes sure that it's properly matched, right? So let me let you see the log schema. Right? So define standardized events and data structures for the log aggregation system, right? We also have a log parser. What it does, it splits it up into 3 different families. We're going to have the flat schema, right? These are the schemas that the logs sit on top of. Let me give an example right here, right? There's some logs that are nested, right? This one is going to be the flat one because all the logs are sitting on top. Let me show you an example of a nested one. A nested one would be second chance. Reason being so is because you see here, and I kind of like the nested ones a little bit better because it's a lot more organized, right? It's organized by the month, organized by the week, and even organized by the day. So those are my nested ones. And we also have a few that are, let me come back to the parser, screener baby, right? Just a little bit different. This is a bot that still runs, it still trade options, but it trades it a little bit differently, right? And then we also have our aggregator. Our aggregator is what takes all of the logs, right, and being able to do the full build, dumps it in the database so we can query it. So this is going to be one of the main engines within inside that MCP, right? So these are going to be the 3 main files that's going to be running our MCP. You see here, these are Python, right? Now, before we get into that, whenever I have a new code, a new package that I need to understand, I come over to my handy dandy py.org. I don't know if you got that. Py.py. So this is where you can find, install, and publish Python packages with Python package index, right? So the first thing I want us to understand is FastMCP. FastMCP is what we're going to be using to create an MCP server. And don't worry, I'll drop the link in the description. So building an effective MCP application is harder than it looks. FastMCP handles all of that. It declares, let me just make that, it declares a tool with Python functions, schema, validation, and documentation, generates that automatically, connects to the server with the URL, and then transport negotiation, authentication, and the protocol life at managed for you. You focus on the logic, the MCP part just works. With FastMCP, best practices are built in. That's why FastMCP is the standard for working with MCPs. So we're going to be using FastMCP in order to do that. And one other thing I want us to be able to understand what we're going to be using is orjson. Orjson is the fast correct JSON library for Python. It benchmarks as a fastest Python library for JSONs, and it makes it correct the standard JSON library over third-party libraries. It sterilizes databases, datetime, NumPy, and UUID instantly natively, right? This is just JSON, but it's built on Rust, right? It's a lot more faster, and it makes it a lot more efficient to be able to run our MCP, right? Because we're creating it ourselves. So I'm going to be using FastMCP and orjson, right? And don't worry, I'll link it in the description. So let's go back to Claude Code. So we have our plan, right? Our plan lays out everything we're going to be doing, right? I already did the prelim work for y'all. Now we're actually going to be building the MCP, right? So this is what's pending. So what I'm going to do is take our plan. What I'm going to do is clear to free up the context, right? Then what I'm going to do is review our plan that we have. Make sure. Also, I've already pip installed this in our Algo Let me just show y'all my Conda environment. So come here. Bro, you probably want to take a while. Okay, make sure the libs we need are installed and verify. Advise once ready before we create the MCP needed for this system. All right, beautiful. You're gonna go ahead and review that. So what I want to do, so you see base. I'm not in the Conda environment because it says base. So let me to jump in the Conda environment. Just gonna paste it. You see how it says Algo baby now. Now we're gonna hit pip list. Now this lists all of the Python packages that we have here. So we're looking for two things. We're looking for FastMCP. Where are you? FastMCP is, I thought I did. FastMCP is not here. Am I tripping? That's Fast API. All right, FastMCP is not here. So we need to pip install it here. That's why we check. And orjson. Is orjson here? Orjson is right here. So we have orjson. We just need to pip install FastMCP. All right, bet. That's what it's doing. It just listed, just did what I just did, right? All right, beautiful. Now it's going to say, oh, you know what? We do not have FastMCP. Let me show. Wait, you don't have the FastMCP. The plan is partial list. Okay. I need FastMCP, fam. Wait. Back up, fam. Hold on. Let me check the screener MCP pattern to verify the fleet analyzer. Wait. We are going to be using FastMCP. Check context 7 for more information. And if needed, visit. Let me just go ahead and drop it. FastMCP. For context that maybe is outside of the MCP context 7. Now, once you gain context, pip install, make sure good before we proceed. Let me cuss you out. Like, bruh, listen to me. All right, got it. We're using FastMCP instead. Let me get the docs and install it. So boom. So you're seeing a lot of things in play too now. It's using the tool, right? So this is one of the things that goes into the context windows, right? The tool is going to be the MCP. It's using context 7, and it's going to, it's searching the library for FastMCP. FastMCP is a Python server creating tools. Okay, it was able to find the .md. Now it's going to actually search. That just ways that we're not context poisoning, right? We're allowing it to use its tools in order to find the information that it needs. Okay, FastMCP is so much cleaner than raw MCP server. No shit. I was like, bro, follow me, bro. Follow me. All right, now if I go here and clear, if I hit pip list, FastMCP should be here now, right? FastMCP. FastMCP. All right. Now we're GUOPERATOR. Bet. So now it has context of FastMCP. Let me read the fleet analyzer functions. Has proper context of FastMCP. All right. Installed. Functions. Next step is to create the fleet. Okay, using FastMCP patterns. Ready when you are. All right, bet. Let's get this done. All right, so one thing that I want us to review, right, is what I did versus what I was supposed to do. So what I did, we saw that log dump, right? So that log dump was just another example of me being able to context poison, right? Because what I did, I just dumped the log in there. I was like, all right, bet. I need you to explain this to me. Is there any errors? If there are any errors, then I need you to explain like what those errors are, right? The proper way to do it is going to be with this structured call, right? And this structured call is going to be using this MCP server, right? MCP server is going to use the tool, right? Okay, I was able to finish. Use the tool, find the bot, the date, and then the error count, right? So now it allows us to be able to properly answer, all right, VWAP hit 3 times data failures from Tasty Trade starting at 9:47. It tripped the circuit breaker at 9:47:38. Close with 0 trades. Run the fleet analytics to check if other bots hit the same problem, right? So it allows us to be able to proper understand what we get. So let's go back to Claude Code. So now it's going to verify. Hold on. There's one more thing I need to check before. 2 seconds, bruv. 2 seconds, bruv. All right. Boom. You come here. Let's test that. I appreciate y'all. All right. So okay, the server started cleaning. Now let me verify the tools. Let me go ahead and take off the auto. Beautiful. I love when it comes together. All 5 tools work, returns live data. The FastMCP auto schema, you hint, okay. String, okay, the directory becomes the MCP's tool schema automatically. Claude sees the doc strings and the tools description, the instruction, Parma. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Add to Claude Code under, go ahead and add. Go ahead and add. And make sure you didn't forget anything, bruv. Damn, I just context poison again. I'm getting out of that habit, right? I am super getting out of that habit, right? Because we're just used to, oh, just paste. It'll figure it out, right? But we want to be a lot more effective and efficient with being able to have, and not necessarily have, but like being able to manage our usage, right? So what's happening right now is we are going to be updating our JSON settings, right? So we can add our MCP server here that we just made. So here is just so these settings are going to be the rules. These are going to be the permissions that we've already given Claude Code, right? These different MCP server commands. And we're going to be adding one more. We also have hooks. I want to explain that a little bit so I can see how that works. But these are just these different commands, right, that we're giving to Claude Code such that I understand how it works. But find all the MCP server section. And remember, we're going to be running this in, all right, the root level MCP server is at line 447. Let me go to the JSON. Audit. Okay, sessions. I'll see here. And that's just another hook, but let's just keep going. Bet. So now what we're having Claude Code do, it's reading its actual JSON file. Okay, found the root MCP server. Now it's actually going to update it with the fleet analyzer. Right, now let me update the document usage. Beautiful. Now we should be Gucci them. Like we can actually test this just to make sure that this works, bruv. Let me just go ahead and, because I think you got one more in you. Let's actually go look at the fleet analyzer, right? While it's doing that. Okay, bet. Let me go look at the file. Beautiful. So you see the tools, the fleet performance, bot details, bot errors, fleet incidents, validate a bot. Here's the usage. So we're bringing in FastMCP, import FastMCP, right? This is where the analytics model lives. So that's why it's doing that bit here, right? MCP server, analyze 0DTE options trading for fleet logs, use today or this format, bot IDs, MCP tools, get the fleet-wide performance summary of the trading day, returns the total P&L, trade count, win rate, active bots, bots with errors, per bot breakdown, and any defected fleet incidents. I love this. Oh, this is perfect. And let me see how many. This is under 200 lines of code. This is beautiful. So let's just make sure this is Gucci. You should be done. All right. So now what we're going to do, if I go to this / command and pull up MCP, we're not going to see the one that we just added here, right? What we need to do is now exit, clear, boom. Now if I do MCP, we see our MCP, Fleet Analyzer, bet. So we have our MCP. Now let me also check the context. Embellishing. So you lying to me, bruv? All right. So the only thing is before I even started a session, right? It's costing me 14%. It's costing me 27,000 tokens, right? The reason it's costing me 27,000 tokens, here's the breakdown. Now we saw, I didn't even put even a message in yet, bruv. Here's the MCP. MCP got a little bit longer, right? Because we added our own MCP. The other MCPs that were there are already there. Here's the, maybe I could take some out from these plugins, right? And I need to make I'll do some work on my end, right? So before we even start, I don't think it's that bad, right? Because I'm very good at being able, if I get like 60, 80%, 80%, 85% is probably my cap. I'm going to have it make a .md. All right, what do we talk about? What is the session? What did you work on? Right? So we can have context of it moving forward. Right. So I'm starting at 14%. It's not bad, but this is just the cost of doing business, right? The cost of being able to make sure that, number one, Claude Code can start a little bit better, can have context of our bots. Number two, I don't have to context poison. Number three, we're properly being able to context engineer with regards to using our AIs or LLMs a lot better. And I heard this before, so I'm not taking credit for this, but I heard, I don't know if I read it or heard it somewhere, but heard that context window is going to be the new gold, right? So if it's going to be the new gold, why not take advantage of being able to understand how it works? So let's make sure our MCP server is working. Can you advise us of any errors that our bots had during today's session using the Fleet MCP server? The Fleet MCP server, using the Fleet MCP server. All right, bet. So now what it's going to do is using the Fleet MCP server, is pulling in today's date. Now remember, I didn't dump anything here. It's going directly in order. So no fleet-wide incident, no fleet-wide errors. So 3 bots hit error simultaneously. Let me check. And it's pulling in all the bots information, right? Remember, I didn't have to data dump here. It just did it automatically. And the first time it did it, so we just have to be able to run it. So you now can actually see the results. So we're seeing here live how this MCP works, right? We're being able to connect to IDL, which is Claude Code, to the MCP, and then it's pulling the information that it needs, right? All right, let me just save you, so you don't have to ask me each time. Beautiful. So we see. All right, clean session, no errors despite detected across all 17 bots. These are the bots that ran. Fleet incidents detected failures. We had provider outages, broker issues. We also had 0 positions per session, and flagged bots were running today, right? So this is our MCP server that is working and that is able to provide us a consistently what our bots is doing, right? So we don't have to just dump JSON logs in there. So if you want more videos like this, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button. It is your boy Creative. I'll be back at it again with another episode.